You know, I wanted to come on here and talk about some wrestling news for a bit. Well, my mom watches the Sparkle movie. But I wanted to come on in and kind of talk about a few things that have been going on. Now, I watched the fourth episode, well, at least a little bit of the fourth episode of the podcast called Tuesday Night Titans that JD from NY206 does, along with his co-host Drew, or Andrew, as he's known by his full name. And Drew basically brought up something that, even I didn't know about, nor did I think anybody else knows about. And that is the fact that Jeff Hardy is going to appear for GCW seemingly around SummerSlam weekend. Now, with that said, they did bring up the fact that, with all due respect to GCW, that is the last place for someone like Jeff Hardy, especially based on his history, to be part of. Now, whether or not it's going to be just for a signing or one-off appearance, and he doesn't compete or anything like that, then fine, not a problem. But but still, I should say, they feel like maybe you know Tony Khan needs to not allow his talent anymore to basically make appearances outside of AEW. Like it's good, that he wants them to, make a little extra cash, here and there, on the side, doing what they love. But unless he can be guaranteed that, you know, they won't suffer an injury or won't be involved in any kind of like, death match scenario or something, then he should really consider, essentially just pulling the plug on it, or at least, you know, limiting them, to what they can do appearance wise. And I kind of see where JD and Drew are coming from on that because it would make more sense, especially now that he has Collision alongside Dynamite and Rampage. It would make more sense for him to kind of like pull back a little bit in letting the talent, make these appearances. So I can understand, where they're coming from with that, as well. But there are talents that have in their contracts, like let's say John Moxley, they brought up, for example, that allow them to make these appearances in other promotions and compete in any kind of match they want. Moxley's contract obviously allows him to, compete not just in Japan, but in Wrestling Revolver, GCW, and in places like Defy and elsewhere, um, if he feels like it, or if he's asked to be there for a fee. And although that's great for the promotion to have a working relationship with AEW, because at the end of the day, that's what this really is with Tony Khan, trying to create partnerships with various other promotions around the world, if not the country. Still, it is a huge risk factor to basically allow your talent to go off and do this kind of stuff because you don't know whether or not that talent is going to get injured or anything. Um, for example, hold on for a second. Sorry about that. It seems my mom has good timing. It's like she knows when you're trying to film, and then she'll make little breaks here and there, and then you have to keep quiet. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, you know, one of the things they were talking about was basically, Tony Khan needs to, start reeling in his talent and, prevent them from, well, not necessarily prevent them, but make sure that if they're going to do these kind of shows, that they're not going to risk, any kind of injury. Like I said with Moxley, he has I guess, a provision in his contract that allows him to compete, in these various places, no matter what kind of match it is. Whether it's a, strong style like match in Japan, a death match like match in GCW or Wrestling Revolver, you know, it, he has this provision that allows him to do all this, and there's nothing really Tony Khan can do, because if he tries to reel him in, John and maybe some other talent might feel a little betrayed. Like, we thought, you would let us do this, but now you're saying we can't. So I get where JD and Drew are coming from by them saying that now that Tony Khan and AEW have Rampage, not just Rampage, but Collision now, along with Dynamite, that they need that Tony Khan needs to be more careful about who he allows to compete, in these independent promotions, when AEW is not, like this saying, doing house shows, the house rules shows, if you will. And that, again, going back to I think what I said earlier, that's another reason why I think he allows these talents to do that. Whether it's a smart idea or it's not, because AEW is basically a weekly show, at most, on both fronts. Dynamite, Dynamite and Rampage, being, you aired and taped together in one night. Same with Ring of Honor and Collision. It's a situation to where if you're only competing once or twice a night, depending on when you're booked or how you're booked, it's financially, not stable enough. Like, they're probably getting paid a decent amount of money contractually, no doubt. But outside of that, it's like, where else are they going to make some money? How else are they going to, financially stay afloat, even though they probably have enough to do so? Or how else are they going to keep their passion for what they love to do going without, basically rusting or, losing a step? Because that's another reason I think Tony Khan allows these talents to do this. It's mainly because of the fact that they don't want to lose a step in what they do in the ring. Yes, it is risk taking for them to go and be part of these things and be part of these kind of matches. But, contractually, if the major promotion that they're, officially signed to contractually is only a once a week or once a month like show, thanks to various tapings, like for example, Marsha Slamovich, who is the GCW World Champion, well, was the GCW World Champion. I think the first woman to do it, honestly. She's officially signed to Impact Wrestling, but yet you have Marsha, recently competing in GCW as their champion and not as their champion, and she's competing in these deathmatch like matches, these deathmatch style matches, where she's going through, barbed wire, legit barbed wire, glass, light tubes, you name it, against men and women. And that's a risk factor that's being taken by Marsha because of the fact that Impact and Anthem Sports are allowing her to do this, even though she's contractually signed to them. You see what I'm saying? And again, the only advantage to that, though, that goes in Marsha's favor is that all she has to do is show up, once a week, once a month, I should say, or twice a month for Impact Wrestling, be part of their pay-per-views or the Impact Plus Fight TV special events, as well as the following tapings, and then she has free reign to go and be part of whatever she wants to be part of. That's the only advantage. But let's not forget one thing. History is not on the side of companies that allow this to happen. One talent that we know of, and she has been talked about a lot. As a matter of fact, hold on for a sec. As I was saying, let's take a look at one example for, if you will, historically, Mickey Knuckles. When she went to Impact, when it was transitioning from TNA into Impact, she went under another name, of course, one that was similar to what she had or was known for, but she still got to compete on the independents. And I think they said she was on the verge of being pushed, or she was going to be in a major program or something like that. And what happened is she ended up being in an event to where she did a move. I don't know if it was a diving move or something, and she ended up breaking her ankle in half. She basically broke her leg, her ankle in half, to where she was going. It's on film. It's on film legitimately where she's like, "I'm going into shock. I'm going into shock." So, and I gotta watch my, I gotta watch Dark Side of the Ring just a little bit. I forgot about that it's on and everything. Trying to get this all filmed. Well, my mom is watching Sparkle. But anyway, she's saying she's going into shock. She's going into shock, and that took her out of the equation of for Impact TNA indefinitely. Whatever plans they had for her were just, just taken away, just erased off the map. So I could see where basically, like I said, JD and Andrew of Tuesday Night Titans, I could see where they're coming from, because it doesn't make sense for someone, like, for someone like a Jeff Hardy, especially with his history, to be part of something like GCW and the reputation that locker room has. I get that it's not smart to keep allowing someone like Jon Moxley to continuously do all these kind of crazy matches or strong style matches outside of AEW. I get that. And the same goes for anybody else. I mean, Athena, she still competes independently. Swerve Strickland, I get that. I mean, Steve Macklin got injured on an Impact World Tour in Australia, in his rematch against Alex Shelley for the Impact World title. He is one of Wrestling Revolver's, outside of Impact, he's one of Wrestling Revolver's top stars. He is basically the face of their company, outside of Sami Callihan. And him getting injured isn't good for them. It isn't good for them, nor is it good for Impact. How severe the injury is, we don't know. The point that I'm getting at is a lot of these wrestling companies, they need to kind of start reevaluating allowing certain talent to go off and compete on these independent promotions, or for these independent promotions. They need to start reevaluating that. Again, I understand the reasoning for it, the booking reasonings and all that. I get that, but they need to really evaluate, really consider, okay, is this a smart idea for us to allow this to happen? I mean, people can get on WWE for basically saying, oh, our talents are independent contractors and everything, and yet they don't visually prove it, because they're always like trying to take charge of certain things or have a say in certain things, and that's fine. But there's a reason though WWE doesn't really, when you think about it, hate them or not, reason why they don't allow the independent contractors to to compete outside of WWE, unless there are certain provisions in place that will protect that talent. So it's understandable. It's understandable why they don't basically live by they live by what they call their talent, independent contractors. It's more understanding now, because they don't want to risk somebody getting injured or hurt or whatever. But yeah, I think I do agree, Tony Khan does need to reevaluate this. And I think if WBD is on the verge of really pushing this AEW train for them, into their profile and having more say in what happens, that might be the key in what keeps these talents from, competing outside of AEW. But give me your thoughts. Love to hear what you have to say.